What is up, Bears fans? Thank you for joining another episode of the Bears Huddle podcast, your UK take on our Chicago Bears, guys. We're going to talk a little bit of running back. We're going to talk a little bit of, look, the draft is great. Look, I love the picks. Well, not all the picks. I love the majority of the picks. I love the Loveland pick. I love the Burden pick. I like the Zar Frazier pick. I like the Shamar Turner pick. I think the Carl Monangai pick is a good one. I don't like I've said multiple times, I don't like the linebacker pick. The more and more I hear about the linebacker, the more I think it's a busted flush. I'm not keen on the Ozzy Trapilo pick, but look, I think, there is a lot of good picks in there. I think, look, we've still got a situation where the Bears are being talked up, very much being talked up by the NFL media, even by some Bears fans as well. And by fans of opposition teams. I mean, I heard a Lions fan the other day talking about the fact that the Bears will be a threat this coming season. So, look, I get that. But I still think there are one or two areas on the roster that are a little bit cause for concern. I do believe that, So I think that you've got to see a situation where, you look at the running back room, you have concerns, especially considering that I think a lot of us, including I think Ryan Poles, was sort of wanting to take a running back in the draft. And I think, as was explained post-draft, we were kind of unlucky in the circumstances that we missed out on a number of top running backs because of the position of our draft picks, because of the trade back. I think the trade back at 41 was the wrong trade back to make. I think we're just unlucky. Obviously, Aston Genty went to the Raiders before he went to us. Quinshawn Judkins gone, Travion Henderson gone, Amarian Hampton gone, Caleb Johnson gone. Well, I think the Caleb Johnson one could have been addressed had we not traded back from 41. But hey, that's done and dusted now. So, we go into the season at this moment in time with obviously no cap space realistically. Like I said on the video yesterday, if we were to sign all our draft picks now, we would be $3 million over the cap. There was these stories about Nick Chubb the other day. They seem to have been quietened off a little bit in the last couple of days. So, at the moment we're looking at a running back room that has, and look, I know Ben Johnson said there is no depth chart, but realistically, you're going to sit there, you're going to make a depth chart, aren't you, out of the running backs. So there's Dondre Swift, there's Roschon Johnson, there's Kyle Monangai, Travis Homer, and I suppose to some extent Ian Wheeler as well can be added in to that list. But, if we look at the options, we look at these options at this moment in time. We look at, Dondre Swift obviously is running back 1, Roschon Johnson running back 2, Kyle Monangai is 3, and Travis Homer and Ian Wheeler kind of playing bit parts there. So a lot falls on Dondre Swift. Now, look, Swift was not great last year, was he at all? He was not great. He had a number of weaknesses. I think, at times he pushed it too much looking for that home run that didn't come off. He danced around. His feet were a bit too happy at times. I think there's the things that, need to be worked on and need to be developed. And maybe that's something that Ben Johnson, Declan Doyle, Eric Bieniemy can sort out with him. I don't know. It could be something that he developed. You've got to remember, this is a guy who had a career year rushing for over 1,000 yards in Philadelphia behind a good O-line with a good OC. So, maybe now you have a situation where we have an O-line that actually works, well, hopefully works, with Jonah Jackson, Drew Dolman, Joe Tooney, Darnell Wright, and another. We've got a situation where we have a decent O-line, hopefully. So, maybe as well, add into that the coaching of Ben Johnson, the coordination of Declan Doyle, the coaching of Eric Bieniemy. Maybe he gets back to where he was when he was at Philadelphia. I think it's worth remembering that the guy had over 900 yards behind a dreadful O-line with one of the worst offensive coordinators in the game last season. So, there are sort of reasons for optimism there around Dondre Swift. I think, there is rightly concerns about him. Like I said, the fact that he tries to push it too many times to try to get that home run when perhaps he needs to just concentrate on getting the hard yards, the simple yards, the workhorse yards that helps take the pressure off the offense that he doesn't always do. That then puts the pressure on Caleb to come up with a big play, which can then lead to, him getting sacked because he's trying to hold on to the ball for too long, trying to get receivers open, or he gets intercepted because he has to take that high risk throw. Roschon Johnson, another one who's more of sort of a goal line back. He's not a guy who's going to take it to the house from a long distance out. And Kyle Monangai, who knows? Who genuinely knows what we're getting in Kyle Monangai? Look, his tape looks good, but he's playing college football, and as we know, the difference between college football and NFL football is huge. Running against college linemen college linebackers, college DBs is different to running against NFL grade O linemen, NFL grade linebackers, NFL grade DBs. You know, you've got a lot harder task to get through an NFL O line than you have to get, or NFL D line, than you have to get through a college one. So there's a difference in level there. And I know Monangai is billed as this kind of dump truck, strong guy, tough guy, can make tackles bounce off him, etc. But like I said, the difference in level between college and the NFL is huge. Now, look, where do the Bears go? You know, is this an issue that we need to address? Is this the one area that could let the Bears offense down? Now, I've got no doubt in my mind that the offense has an awful lot more going for it this season than it did last. Better coordination and coaching obviously been primary. Caleb Williams going into his sophomore year. Hopefully that his sea legs will be under him and he'll be ready to go. More weapons for him to throw to. Colston Loveland, Cole Kmet, Roma Dunze, DJ Moore, Luther Burden. You know, there's a lot of more talent there. There's a lot more to go at, you know, in terms of Caleb Williams and obviously the coordinators as well. But, you know, I think one thing that will really help Caleb Williams and will help the Bears long term this season, and in a very tough, hard division like the NFC North, is having a running game. And having that running game, I think, is absolutely vitally important. And there is, I think, a real concern over Dondre Swift, over Roschon Johnson, over Carl Monangai, Travis Homer. Is that enough to take this running game forward? Is that enough to develop and put down a running game? Now, like I said, you know, it could be that behind a better O-line with better coordination and coaching, Dondre Swift comes back to where he was in Philadelphia and we see a better Dondre Swift. That's got to be the thing. Of course it does. Now, look, in terms of options, so where do we go if we don't go, with Dondre Swift coming into this new season? Well, obviously Nick Chubb is the one who's been primarily talked about. You know, there's been a lot of talk around him. That sort of, I don't know how truthful that remark by, I can't remember the guy's name on 92.7 or 92.3 or whatever it was, the fan in Cleveland, the Isle of Misfit Toys, whether that was how true that was, that he was nearing a contract with an NFC North team. And, you know, I think a lot of people put 2 and 2 together and got 5 or 4 or 6 or 12, depending on your take on this, that he was going to be a Bear because, you know, you look at the Packers backfield, they've got enough. You look at the Vikings and the Lions, you know, they've got running back talent. They don't need a running back, certainly not risky running backs like Nick Chubb. Now, Nick Chubb obviously is a top-class running back. You know, we showed that the other day on the video, the amount of 1,000-yard seasons that he's got. The big concern around Nick Chubb obviously is the injuries. You know, is he the same running back that he was during those 1,000-yard seasons? You know, he's had that horrific knee injury. He's only played 10 games in the last 2 years. It is a concern. It is a worry. Is he going to break down again? Is it going to go again? Is he going to have the same pace and the same power that he had previously? That's the big concern. Now, if you watch his Instagram, he's jumping over tall buildings in a single bound, you know, trying to put across that he is fully fit. So that's an option. But again, at this moment in time, there is no cap space to kind of move that deal forward. J.K. Dobbins is another one that's been mentioned. The current Charger, obviously he's had an unrestricted free agent tag put on him, but still available to be signed as a free agent. It's so that the Chargers get something towards a compensatory formula. So he's another one. Again, a veteran. Again, someone who, again, there's question marks over. Is he still the same running back that he was in Baltimore? Is he still that same level of talent? That's the key question. Gus Edwards is another one, but Gus Edwards is over 30. I don't know. You know, it is an issue. It is something that, you know, there is options out there, but do any of these running backs kind of get you off your seat? Do they get you excited? You know, Nick Chubb, J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards. Now, there has been some rumours, some gossip, some talk about a possible trade. Breece Hall from the Jets. Now, Breece Hall had a poor season last year, but if you go back to his previous season, again, was fantastic. Again, you've got to sort of put that in the terms of, again, that the Jets stank last year and that they had a quarterback who is, quite frankly, one of the most weirdest human beings on the face of planet Earth last season, and obviously a succession of different head coaches. So Breece Hall is an option, but Breece Hall is someone you would have to trade for. Now, is that an option? Is that something the Bears want to look at? You know, it could be that they look at that and say, well, the price is too high. No, I don't want to go for that. You know, if it was something like a 4th rounder or a 5th rounder, then yeah, that's a decent price to pay for someone like Breece Hall. And I think Breece Hall comes in and instantly makes your running game better, doesn't he? But if it was, say, a second rounder or something around that mark, I think that's far too rich to pay for Breece Hall. So, these are the options. It is a confusing strategy, and it's something that Ryan Poles, Ben Johnson, and the rest of the Bears staff are going to have to address, I believe, before the start of the NFL season. It is, I think, something that does need looking at. I don't think that there is enough strength in that running back room. I think DeAndre Swift could improve with the right coaching and the right O-line, but I do think we do need something else to add to that room to make it NFL ready for the first day of the season. Guys, I'd love to know your thoughts on it. Is it a crisis? Probably not a crisis, but something that does need to be addressed so it doesn't become one. Thank you for watching the Bears Huddle podcast, guys. As always, on the way out, please like, comment, share, and subscribe, and let's bear down. See you later, Chicago.